A couple of upsets around the area and a close one that went to overtime. We'll highlight all the action on this week's Varsity 360 right now. Hello everyone and welcome to Varsity 360's Gridiron Report. I'm Mark Coleman from V2SN, here to take a look at the week's top stories in Fredericksburg area high school football. As always, I brought along one of my good friends from the FLS varsity team. Today I have Freelance Star sports reporter T, Nathan Warters. You know, one of these days I'm going to have to find out what T stands for. Looking good there, Nathan.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Welcome to the show. Always good to have you.
Good to be here.
Some exciting games around the Fredericksburg area in high school football this past week. And let's start with our game of the week. This pitted 1-3 Brook Point facing a 3-1 Riverbend team. Interestingly, last week both teams won based on special teams. Brook Point with a last-second field goal over Chancellor. Riverbend beat Orange thanks in part to punt return for a touchdown, as well as 2 blocked field goals. I wonder if special teams is going to play a role in this game. Why don't we go to the video and take a look. Riverbend and quarterback Jordan DeMarco got off to a quick start, particularly passing the ball. Here DeMarco rolls to his right, buys some time, and finds a wide open Matt Felton behind the Brook Point defense, and he will score from 52 yards out. Later in the second quarter, a punt return fumble by Riverbend gave Brook Point field position that was awfully good. Donovan Fobbs makes them pay. He brings it in from 1 yard out for the score, puts Brook Point up 7-6 at the time. A big drive by Riverbend is ended with a fumble in the red zone. Brook Point takes over, but they're not content with that. Fobbs lofts the ball down the right sideline, and 6'1" Reginald Collins rips it away from the defensive back, putting Brook Point in business. A couple of plays later, Fobbs decides he will try the left side this time, and he hits 6'2" Kai Russ, makes a circus catch in the left corner of the end zone for the touchdown. Brook Point takes a 14-6 lead into halftime. Riverbend comes out in the third quarter strong. DeMarco finds Chris Pritchett for 35 yards and a score. 14-12 at that point. Another turnover by Brook Point. Riverbend's Zach Sims punches it in from 3 yards out. Running was tough in this game though for both teams. Area leader third in the area, Damone Drew, was bottled up for most of the game, but on a 3rd-and-1 play late in the fourth quarter, he finds room up the middle and rumbles in from 51 yards out, quieting the homecoming crowd in Riverbend. But Riverbend plays this hurry-up offense, so moving quickly is nothing new to them. Here, Jordan DeMarco converts a 4th down and 10 play, finding Felton again over the middle, a beautiful catch by Felton. They are in field goal range. De Silva was hitting 52-yard field goals during the pregame warm-ups. He comes on to attempt a 23-yard field goal to win the game, but Brook Point just has a jailbreak. Jeremy Parrott actually makes the block on this field goal attempt, preserving the win. Brook Point comes away with a 20-19 win over Riverbend. Brook Point goes to 2-3 on the year. Drew ended up with 110 yards on 20 carries. A large half of it roughly was on that one touchdown run. Fobbs with a nice day, 216 yards passing and a touchdown. DeMarco had a pretty decent day for Riverbend, 17 of 26, 210 yards and 2 touchdowns. But I tell you, Nathan, these 2 tall receivers that Brook Point has, combined with the rushing from Damone Drew, Brook Point might be a team to watch out for.
Yeah, these highlights is the first I've seen of them this year, and I'm impressed by the talent that they have. I mean, those guys are going up and making plays, and you know, you talked about Drew. It's a sign of a good running back. If you bottle him up for the whole game and all of a sudden he breaks one, you know, that's what you got to do. You got to keep going to the well and running the football, and that was a huge play in the game. Going to that block kick, I mean, it looked like Riverbend didn't have anybody blocked on that. So that was a tough way to end the game, but you can't put blame on one player. They like you said, jailbreak.
Parrott had the block, but I had to watch the video about 20 times to be able to pinpoint who it was, because if Parrott hadn't made it, there were about 3 or 4 other kids that would have been able to make that block. So outstanding special teams play by Brook Point. Did a good job on the defensive side as well. They bottled up Zach Sims. Sims only had about 48 yards rushing on the day. They look to be legit.
Yeah, I think both of these teams look like they're going to be contenders there, and they're going to be fighting for spots in the playoffs.
So we're 5 weeks into the season now for most teams. Both of these teams have played 5 games now, and I think we still don't quite know where they really, which it's almost a Jekyll and Hyde, which team we're really going to see on any given week.
Well, somebody, I think it was Bill Brown at Colonial Forge, compared the Commonwealth to the Southeastern Conference. Every week is a different challenge, and all those teams are kind of reminds me of the Coastal Division in the ACC. Who's going to win that? They all, it's just kind of one team can win this week, the next team can win the next week. So these teams are all going to be jockeying for position for the next 5 weeks.
I think that the trend there is, as long as I'm not there to see Tech play, they have a chance of winning. If I'm there, it's bad luck, I guess. I'm not sure, but we'll save that for another day. Also around the area, King George and Colonial Beach met up in a pretty good barn burner. This one went to overtime, Nathan.
This is, we talked about Colonial Beach a couple weeks ago after they got that win over Franklin, and they beat Sussex Central, which was another one of those teams that they hadn't been able to win over the years against. And King George, it seems like every week they had a team that they were trying to kind of get over the hump. This was one where they played really well, and they, at the end of the game in overtime, they miss a 2-point conversion run, and King George scores and kicks the extra point to win. So I think King George is trying to claw its way back into the playoff picture after a couple tough weeks to start the season, and the Beach looks legit. I think even in a loss, I think this is a game where you kind of look at them and go, hey, the Colonial Beach might be a team to watch out for come playoff time.
We've talked about this a long time. We don't really believe in quality losses. You want to win games. Looking at the schedule before the season started, Colonial Beach had to couldn't realistically expect to win out of this one, but they almost pulled it off and go in 3-1 after 4 games. This looks like a legitimate team, and they had King George on the ropes. Jacoby White helped to pull it out, a touchdown rushing, a touchdown passing. He also had a kickoff return for a touchdown. But Lamar Lucas certainly did his damage on Beach's side. Yeah,
he's becoming a Player of the Year candidate is what he is. I mean, we've got a couple players that are running every week, like their lives depend on it. And Kubi at Eastern View is one of them, and Lamar Lucas every week is putting up huge numbers. And if you had told them, early in the season or in the preseason, okay, 3-1, how does that sound to you guys? They would have taken that in a heartbeat. I think they're in a really good spot.
I think so. Meanwhile, in other action in the Power Poll Top 5, number 2 Stafford actually falls to a pretty strong-looking Mountain View team. Nathan, you were at this game. I personally am surprised by this score. I'm not surprised that Mountain View won. I know North Stafford has had some injuries. 23-6, this was a pretty good domination of the Wolverines.
I think both of these teams were, at this point in their season, they were both kind of still trying to figure out where they were identity-wise. I think North Stafford knew who they were, but dealing with injuries to their tailback, to their wide receiver, their kicker and their wide receiver, their two-way lineman, Cameron Myers, they had a lot of guys who were banged up, and some guys didn't play at all in this game. That's a viable excuse when you've got a lot of talent on the bench and you're not playing. Mountain View was the other way around. They started the year with a lot of guys hurt, and some guys have come back. A key one was Ahmad Tweedy. He was one of those guys where he was a backup quarterback last year, played a couple games early in place of Burris when he was out, moved to wide receiver. He's a playmaker there, but they needed him. They needed that insurance at quarterback to know that, okay, we have a playmaker who can fill in for Burris if he gets hurt. So they were able to give Burris the green light, and Burris just went nuts. 143 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, he was hard to bring down. I mean, from the very beginning, you could just tell they were on a mission. A big win for Mountain View, and it's one of those games where North Stafford, they got to kind of figure out how to right the ship quickly.
Absolutely. So Mountain View goes to 2-3. They potentially salvage their season. North Stafford clings to a 3-2 record. Still half the season to go. I know that FLS Varsity, Justin, has been working some playoff scenario numbers. If you're interested, you can check out their Twitter feed at FLS Varsity. Lots still up in the air and a lot of variation, I guess, between maximum and minimum points. But it's not too early to start thinking about, the implications of these games on the playoff picture. Mountain View, I think, certainly was able to salvage. If they had gone to 1-4, it probably would have been devastating to them.
Yeah, they saved their season with that, and the players knew afterwards.
Absolutely.
The whole week in practice, that was what they were preaching. Hey, we need to get this win, and they got the job done.
Well, number 1 Massaponax took a long trip down to Franklin County, and I think it was worthwhile here, Nathan. Joey Benden got off the bus and just started running, I think, and the whole team followed behind him. Here we'll see, I think this is the second play from scrimmage. Benden will make the fake, call his own number, burst through the middle, and 87 yards later, he's going to be in the end zone. That would be the first score of the day. Massaponax would go on to win this game 63-23. Benden with 4 carries, 105 yards. That helps your per carry average there, in case you're wondering about that. The 1 touchdown, he had 2 touchdowns passing as well. Bo Fields carried 9 times for 107 yards and 1 touchdown rushing. I think they got a lot of backups into this game. Opportunity to get some more experience, add more depth to this team as if they needed more help.
Yeah.
Ponax, I'm going to say this team's for real. I think that they're pretty good.
Yeah, Bo Fields, Joey Benden combined for 212 yards on 12 carries. That's insane. I mean, in that first play, that's just the casualty. That they were just a casualty of the triple option. I mean, they're going after the wrong guy, and Benden just pops out and gets a big run. And there's a lot of teams that have that problem with the triple option.
Yes, yeah. Franklin County certainly shouldn't feel bad about losing to this team. This is clearly a very strong team. I feel like they're going to make some noise in the 5A playoffs. There's a good chance there. I don't think I'm going out on a very big limb. Another team that hopes that they're going to be able to make some noise this season in the playoffs, number 3 Courtland, a very big 50-7 victory over Culpeper. This time it was Victor Green that got the bulk of the rushing yards, 255 yards rushing for Green on just 15 carries, 2 touchdowns. There are just so many weapons on that Courtland team. It's hard to know who you're going to stop because you can't stop them all.
Yeah, this was a little surprising to see Green. We were talking about this before, to get this kind of workload. It's only 15 carries, but still 15 carries with him playing at middle linebacker. I'm assuming they took him off of defense to put him on offense just because they were ahead so much. Let him run the football, but 255, 2 touchdowns. That's a pretty good night's work there.
That's not too bad. Not too bad. Courtland moves to 4-1 on the season going into their bye week. Meanwhile, number 5 Eastern View rolls to a 49-7 victory over Spotsylvania. Kendrick Kuby continues to carry for just ridiculous yardage. 10 carries, 221 yards, and 4 touchdowns rushing for Kuby. Eastern View goes to 5-0 on the season, Nathan. They are one of 4 area teams that are still undefeated.
Yeah, we got Massaponax, we got Eastern View, and we also have Washington Lee and Fredericksburg Christian. And Fredericksburg Christian is one of those teams. We don't talk about a lot because we don't see them. They play on Saturdays, but they're starting to look like they're a legit team too. And Eastern View, obviously, they're rolling. And Kuby, 10 carries for 221. He's been a workhorse, but he's also been just the big play guy as well, just running off 22 yards a carry, and to me, they're going to be hard to stop.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about that, so there were only 6 times he carried the ball that he didn't score a touchdown. That's a little bit crazy. Meanwhile, in other games around the area, Colonial Forge took on Patrick Henry from Roanoke, handled them easily, winning 35-6. Ramon Miller with 11 carries for 109 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Colonial Forge goes to 2-3 on the season. Louisa and Trey Cherry rolls over Charlottesville 28-14. Cherry with 30 carries, 179 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns on the ground. He also passed for a touchdown there. That's not a bad day either there, Nathan, is it?
No. Louisa 3-1 now. They had 4 wins last year, so they're moving along.
Turning things around, absolutely. Well, here's we alluded to this earlier. Washington Lee handles King William 32-14. Some nice performances. Marion Pollard, 18 carries, 114 yards rushing. Dexter Thompson, 14 carries, 105 yards, and 2 touchdowns rushing. Jacob Jones does carry for King William 16 times, 122 yards, and gets a TD on the ground. Meanwhile, Millbrook handles Chancellor by a score of 35-14. It was Western Albemarle 48, Orange nothing, and John Champy didn't edge Caroline 48-7. Handles Caroline rather easily. Well, let's take a look at games coming up for Week 6 around the area, and it starts with an awfully good one. James Monroe visiting Essex. Nathan, this is always a good game.
Yeah, this is Northern Neck District. Going back to those days, about 10 years ago, these teams played each other every year, and they're always good games. And last year's went down to the wire, and I bet this one's going to be a close one too. And James Monroe, their wide receiver Keyshawn Johnson, just this week, actually it was last week, got an offer from Indiana University, so he might be playing with a little bit more pep in his step, maybe.
Yeah.
He's got a Division I offer, and a lot of talent on the field. I know Essex has got at least one big-time Division I player too, so it'll be a fun game. Good
opportunity for JM to gauge where they are, but they've had some. The early part of the schedule has been awfully tough, and they've made it through pretty nicely. It sets up well for them, I think. So it'll be interesting to see the outcome of that. JM taking on Essex. Meanwhile, a couple of teams that are looking to prove themselves. Colonial Forge, 2-3. Hard to believe that they are with a losing record at this point. Will face Brook Point, who has won 2 exciting games. They're on a 2-game winning streak. Coach Buzzo, I'm sure, has to be excited about that.
Yeah, and they've, and then the other game they played before their last 2 wins was that North Stafford game that went down to the wire. Yeah. So I think Brook Point has really proven themselves to be competitive every week, and this is going to be a test for Forge, particularly on the road. I think Forge, their record is really it's really a sign of how tough their schedule was to start the year, and I think we all have no doubt that they have the talent to do big things the rest of the year, but I really think this is going to be a test for them.
At some point, that talent, that potential has to turn into reality, and so this, the bell is ringing.
Yeah.
So we'll see if Colonial Forge will answer the call. Another team that has the bell ringing, Riverbend, they have a very difficult challenge ahead of them. They will be hosting a Massaponax team that has handled easily every team that they've faced thus far.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking back to that game last year at Massaponax.
It was ugly.
I think Coach DeMarco and his players probably have that firmly in their minds this week as they're preparing. A really tough challenge. Massaponax is a tough challenge for anyone, but coming off of that game last week for Riverbend and then last year's game, there's no shortage of motivation for the Bears.
Remember that you can listen to the Ponax Riverbend game at riverbendsportsnetwork.com. That game time 7 o'clock for that. And then also we've got Stafford visiting North Stafford. The Stafford team is looking pretty strong, and North Stafford still dealing with some injuries. This could be a very competitive game.
It could be, and there's still a question about a lot of the players, a lot of the hurt players that North Stafford had. Talking to Coach Mangano after the game on Friday, very disappointed about some of the miscues and penalties and stuff like that, and so they're really going to look to shore some of those areas up. And this could be a close game, though. I think it's Stafford's. They're motivated and they've been playing really well, so this could be a close one.
Signature victory opportunity, at least for Stafford. I'm certain that they're motivated for that. So, some exciting games on the docket for Week 6 around the Fredericksburg area. The playoffs are looming, and teams trying to position themselves either to get in or to get good field position, home field type situations for the playoffs. Lots to play for in Fredericksburg area high school football. I hope that you're able to go out and catch a football game this week. Plenty of good action. And I hope that you check back next week for the next installment of Varsity 360. I want to have a big thank you out to Nathan Warters, very busy guy, and appreciate his time. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, Nathan.
It's always a pleasure.
Maybe we can go play some golf again one of these days.
Yeah. Maybe somebody who watches wants to give us a free round or two or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Well, we'd happily trade some airtime for some tee times.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. This is a good guy. This is a good guy. Outstanding idea. Well, that'll do it for this week's installment of Varsity 360. Check back next week for Week 6 action. Until then, I'm Mark Coleman from the Virginia Varsity Sports Network. Thanks for watching, everyone.